In November 2023, a Japanese energy giant paid $3,975,000. Not for fuel, not for a ship, not for cargo, for a place in line. The toll itself, a few $100,000. The right to pay that toll 1 week sooner, almost $4 million. In the month before, about 140 of these slot auctions had been held. Only 3 had ever crossed the 1 million mark. Now the ceiling was gone, because the Panama Canal, the shortcut carrying 3% of world trade, was running out of the one thing nobody had priced in: fresh water. To understand why, you need to see what this canal actually is. Every other choke point in this series is a strait. Salt water, carved by nature, effectively infinite. Panama is different. Panama is a machine. 80 kilometers of engineered waterway, opened in 1914, where ships don't sail through a gap. They climb over a continent. Locks lift them 85 feet above the sea into a rain-fed lake and float them across the mountains. No pumps. Gravity alone. And here is the catch. Every single transit flushes roughly 50 million gallons of fresh water out into the ocean. Not seawater, drinking water. The same lakes that float the ships supply more than half of Panama's population. In 2016, Panama doubled down. $5.25 billion for a new lane of giant locks. Chambers 427 meters long, taking ships of 14,000 containers with water-saving basins that recycle up to 60% of every lockage. Today, 13,000 to 14,000 ships a year make the climb on 180 routes to 170 countries. About 72% of everything on board starts or ends at a United States port. And by common industry estimates, roughly 40% of all U.S. container traffic rides this canal. It is a machine that runs on rain, which raises a question no strait ever has to answer. What happens when the rain stops? 2023 answered it, an El Niño year. Rainfall over the canal's watershed came in roughly 30% short, one of the 3 driest years in more than 7 decades of records. October was the driest October since record-keeping began in 1950, 41% below normal. Gatun Lake needs about 15 cubic hectometers of new water every day. It was taking in 7 and spending 10, a daily deficit of 1,200 Olympic swimming pools. The lake sank to the lowest level ever recorded in a rainy season, 7 feet below where it should have stood. So the canal did the only thing it could. It began to ration. Maximum draft, how deep a loaded ship may sit, was cut step by step from 50 feet to 44. Ships crossed lighter or not at all. Daily transits, about 36 in a normal year, 32 from July, 25 in November. And by December 2023, 22 ships a day. Outside, the queue swelled past 160 vessels, anchored off both entrances. Unbooked ships waited 17 days and more. A third of everything in that queue was energy. Liquefied gas, propane, fuel. Much of it American, bound for Asia. The world's only freshwater shortcut had become the world's most expensive waiting room. Run the ledger. When a third of capacity vanishes, the price of priority explodes. That is how a $4 million queue jump happens. And the shippers who wouldn't pay faced brutal math. U.S. Gulf Coast gas to Japan takes about 20 days through Panama. Via Suez, 31. Around Africa, 34. 2 extra weeks of fuel, crew and charter, every voyage. Some gas carriers abandoned the canal for months. Freight rates on the Houston to Asia run hit records. Panama itself took the hit too. In fiscal 2024, transits fell to 11,240 and revenue dropped to just under $5 billion in a country where this canal drives more than 6% of GDP. Then the rains returned and fiscal 2025 became the best year in the canal's history. $5.7 billion in revenue, 13,400 transits, and a record $2.96 billion wired straight into Panama's treasury. Crisis over? Look at the date on the latest advisory, July the 1st, 2026, weeks ago. A new El Niño is forming in the Pacific, and the canal has already begun cutting draft again, preemptively before a single ship is stuck. The machine remembers. There is a second fight over this canal, not about water, but about who holds the keys. The United States built it, and for most of a century, the canal zone was effectively American soil. In 1977, President Carter and Panama's Omar Torrijos signed the treaties. The canal would pass to Panama at the end of 1999, with one condition attached forever. The canal stays neutral, and Washington keeps the right to defend that neutrality. American warships hold priority in the queue to this day. For 25 years, the settlement held quietly. Then December 2024, President Trump called Panama's fees, quote, ridiculous, and demanded the canal be, quote, returned to us in full and without question. Panama's president answered within hours. Every square meter of this canal belongs to Panama. What followed was fast. February 2025, Panama became the first country in Latin America to walk out of China's Belt and Road Initiative. March 2025, a BlackRock-led group agreed to buy a Hong Kong company's stake in 43 ports worldwide, including the 2 ports flanking this canal's entrances, run by C.K. Hutchison since 1997. Price tag near $23 billion. Beijing objected. The deal stalled, so Panama's Supreme Court settled the local question itself. In January 2026, it ruled the port concession unconstitutional. Final by February, Panama took its ports back, handed the keys to Maersk and MSC for now, and the arbitration lawyers moved in. So can anything fix a canal that depends on rain? Plan 1. Build more water. In February 2025, Panama approved the Rio Indio Reservoir, the canal's first new water source in a century, a 4,600-hectare lake, feeding Gatun by gravity through a tunnel almost 9 kilometers long. The price? Around $1.5 billion. And some 2,000 people in 38 farming communities who stand to lose their land. Construction from 2027, water in the 2030s. Plan 2, the rival canal. Nicaragua sold a $50 billion dream to a Chinese businessman in 2013. 278 kilometers, ground broken in 2014. Nothing was ever built. In May 2024, Nicaragua's parliament quietly revoked the concession. The ghost is officially dead. Plan 3, go dry. Panama's own railway hauled containers across the isthmus while the ships waited, and Maersk liked the workaround so much it bought the railroad in 2025. Mexico is building its own land bridge across the Tehuantepec Isthmus. A pilot train carried 900 cars coast to coast in 9 hours. Useful? Absolutely. A replacement. The canal moved 489 million tons of cargo last year. Every rail line on the continent, combined, is a rounding error next to that. Water is still the cheapest thing humanity has ever found for moving the world. Zoom back out. Every door we have walked through so far was carved by geology. This one was built by hand, and it is the only one with an off switch wired to the sky. 3% of world trade, 40% of America's containers, an entire nation's treasury, all of it downstream of whether it rains over one patch of Panamanian jungle. That is not just a supply chain. That is a bet on the weather. You voted for this door. The next vote is open. Dover, the narrow lane that feeds an island nation, or the Bosphorus, the strait that cuts straight through a megacity. Subscribe and cast your vote below.